Dr. Matthias Rath, a pioneer physician-scientist in the field of prevention of cardiovascular disease, along with Linus Pauling, and creator of mobile medicine, is who catalyses and leads the most important movement for the new world of peace, health and social justice. My main contribution to humanity is the discovery of how you can prevent and treat cardiovascular disease and thus eradicate heart disease. The second is to expose the dependence of the pharmaceutical industry and its investors have the trade of disease. On cardiovascular diseases. When I started researching the cause of cardiovascular disease, it was believed, by the influence of the pharmaceutical industry, they were arising from the damage that cholesterol caused the walls of blood vessels, making them thick and eventually blocking the passage of blood. Today, however, it is known not to be the case, because if it did, not only the arteries of the heart and blood vessels of the brain would be damaged and blocked, but all vessels, causing head myocardial nose, ears, knees or any other g. Initialment found that cardiovascular disease is virtually unknown to the animals as they produce their own vitamin C, vitamin more essential to the production of collagen, which depends on strengthening the walls of sanguines and vessels, however, not only to produce. How often have poor nutrition in vitamin C, which implies the weakening of blood vessels, especially the most exposed to mechanical stress areas, such as the coronary arteries that pump CORO.AO perform this fact, I turn to the study of cells and molecules as a means of preventing and curing disease. The discovery about the nature of cardiovascular disease, so it was only in IA medicine, divided into subjects according to the organs, ignores the fact that health is determined by the quality of the cells, the operation of which promoted biological energy, essentially by small biocatalytic molecules that speed up chemical reactions in the cells, such as vitamins, minerals, certain amino acids, etc. Cellular medicine, although it is a new field of medicine, is based on what any student of biology and biochemistry learned about micronutrients, that they are essential to cellular function optimization. It uses therefore micronutrients as prevention and treatment of common diseases, such as cardiovascular and infectious diseases, cancer, etc. These principles are easily understood by anyone. Therefore, professionals and public health officials need to be familiar, as soon as possible, with them, to be able to apply them in programs aimed exactly health. PLEIADES.com finding that nutraceuticals are biological fuel cells. It becomes obvious that the cause of most diseases, whether or not linked to the cardiovascular system, is prolonged nutritional deficiency, chronic. I also found a natural way to prevent cancer cells from spreading in the body, no matter their type or organ in which they started, because all use the same biological scissors, collagenase, enzyme capable of cutting tissue as collagenase. The cancer aggressiveness is the result of increased production of collagenase. Also found that their production can be decreased or completely blocked by amino acids lysine and proline combined with vitamin C and other micronutrients. A pharmaceutical mafia. The pharmaceutical industry cannot produce drugs that prevent or eradicate diseases, as are the diseases that create the continuing need for the drugs it produces. Therefore, 80% of the drugs available on the market only cover up the symptoms of don't ask Qualker. New discovery always passes through 3 stages. First it is ridiculed. Then fiercely combated. Finally, it is self-evident. And so it was with my descobertas. After more than 10 years of publication of the work Solution to the Puzzle of Human Cardiovascular Disease, Stanford University invited me to present it. Summarize them. So some of the key issues that cardiology has yet to solve. 1. Why animals have no heart attack, but the human being have. 2. Why we have a heart attack and we have no nose attack. 3. Why have hardening of the arteries, atherosclerosis, and we have no hardening of the veins, venous sclerose. In relation to my findings about cancer, were also almost 10 years until the public was introduced to them through a large article in USA Today, perhaps the greatest newspaper in the world, on March 8, 2002, and the news spread like wildfire, for the enjoyment of muitos quando on June 21, 1997, in Germany, publicly denounced the pharmaceutical industry for the premature death of millions of people and for an economy based on trade disease. I related their unscrupulous business with the genocide of the Second Mundial. or historical fact that the largest petrochemical and pharmaceutical cartel in Europe, IG Farben, was the one who financed Hitler's rise to power. Therefore, by determining the Nuremberg Tribunal 1946-47, the IG Farben had to be divided into Bayer, BASF and Hoechst, and some of its officers were sentenced as responsible for the outbreak of war, genocide, dispossession of property and other crimes against humanity. 5 years after that my complaint, on March 31, 2003, Der Spiegel confirmed them: fraud, deception, life-threatening damage to the economy of various countries, etc., as well as the close connection with the pharmaceutical major policy decisions. Note Donald Rumsfeld, for example, before taking over the Ministry of Defense of the Bush administration, was chairman of the board of pharmaceutical company Gilead Sciences, Incorporated. Since between 1977 and 1985, was president and chairman of the multinational pharmaceutical company GESARA & Company, where, due to its extremely profitable administration, was appointed by the Wall Street Transcript 1980 and the Financial World 1981 as the outstanding chief executive officer in the pharmaceutical industry. I really am delighted to have been not only a pioneer in the field of natural medicine, but also in publicly exposing the pharmaceutical industry. And the article Der Spiegel is the first domino that will make her fall in the near future, because the world media should give you continuity, as the health of millions of people and the economy of many countries can no longer be sacrificed this way. Known cure nearly 100 years ago. With the discovery of most of the vitamins and nutrients essential for cellular metabolism optimization, between 1920 and 1935, it became clear that without the nutraceutical cells do not function properly and the disease is the result more via poor this. The first strategy used by pharmaceutical industry has been trying to block any positive information that direction, while the second was disqualify them, making illegal any way prevention or therapy using nutraceuticals. And with the teaching of medicine focusing on the use of pharmaceutical drugs, any natural treatment has been considered as something outdated. Thus, for over half a century, generations of doctors have left the schools without the slightest knowledge about the function of vitamins, minerals, etc., in relation to health. And certainly also knowing that only in the year 1937 3 scientists were awarded the Nobel Prize because of his research in relation to vitamins. Note the Nobel Prize in Chemistry was divided between English Dr. Norman Haworth 1883–1950, for his studies on carbohydrates and vitamin C, and Dr. Paul Carrer Swiss 1889–1971, for his investigations on carotenoids, flavones, vitamins A and B2. O Nobel Prize in Medicine went to the Hungarian Dr. Albert Szent-Györgyi von Nagyrepalt 1893–1986, who described the process of biological combustion, emphasizing the role of vitamin C. 21st century and diseases. Now, at the beginning of this century, humans will wake up from a nightmare. With access to information on the nutraceuticals necessary for optimization of cellular functions, 2 out of 3 people will save their lives. Although to persuade the people and contrary to health professionals, the pharmaceutical industry will spend twice more funds on advertising than in pesquisa. A World Health Organization (WHO), established in 1948, aiming to improve the health of people during its first decade of existence, has published the annual report Joint Reports on Nutrition, along with the Organization for Food and Agriculture or FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. In 1963, however, already having become an instrument of the pharmaceutical cartel, WHO forms a new commission, the Codex Alimentarius, which happens to combat the use of nutrients as elements of prevention, cure and eradication of diseases, more specifically, that is, establishing, by law, caps for intake of nutrients, preventing them from being used as therapeutic elements. Deflagrava is thus a holy war against natural medicines and dissemination of information about the benefits of micronutrients. This allowed for 40 years, the pharmaceutical cartel utilizes WHO infrastructure to dictate their interests and monopolize access to health, with half of its members involved, directly or indirectly, with the pharmaceutical industry. The Codex Alimentarius tried to make outlaw natural therapies in the United States. The proposal, however, eventually defeated by unanimous approval, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act in August 1994. It became so therefore assured the American people free access to alternative therapies and information on natural methods of therapy and prevention. Civil rights are so sacred that country that in peacetime, such a ban is impossible to accept. With over 50% of Americans already consume regularly micronutrients as a means to improve health, the only way you get that freedom would be under martial law brought into force, claiming to war on terrorism or something like that. Having failed to achieve its objectives, the Codex redoubled their efforts and financial resources aimed at prohibiting the disclosure of any information relating to the prevention and treatment related to nutrients, recommendation that if someday come to be approved by the United Nations General Assembly, will have to be adopted by all UN member countries. Against this agenda of the pharmaceutical cartel, we have organized regularly protests, campaigns and scientific conferences. And having achieved more than 600 million letters reached the governments and lawmakers before the meeting of Context, in November 2002 in Berlin, the ban has yet to be implemented. During the exhibition The Health Program for All by the year 2020 to over 100 heads of state at the World of Johannesburg Summit in August 2002, called attention to the fraudulent nature of trade disease used by the pharmaceutical industry and I began the battle to regain the WHO. 2 years earlier, the delegation of South Africa had refused to pay royalties and even distribute AIDS drugs. And so it was processed by the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers. Faced, however, the number of protests coming from all over the world, in January 2001, the pharmaceutical cartel withdrew the case against Pretoria, the first historic victory against the hypocrisy of Context Alimentarius. The governments of Jordan, United Arab Emirates, Nigeria, South Africa, Angola, Mali and many other countries in Africa, as well as China, are already decided to take action based on natural healing processes. It is therefore up to the countries of Africa, Asia and South America lead this battle, which will be played with the same brutality that any military campaign, whose duration will depend on the people's level of knowledge so that it can press their governments to take consistent measures at national and international level. We all need to know that although the pharmaceutical cartel claims that nutrients cause side effects, that's impossible, because they are the body's building material and any excess is eliminated without any problems. Already pharmaceutical drugs, whose synthetic nature the body does not recognize, act in the opposite way, accumulate in the body. With these arguments the Codex Alimentarius also shows ignore the article published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, JAMA, April 15, 1998 shows the drugs as the fourth or third cause of death in the industrialized world. It is already scientifically proven that any virus can be partially or completely blocked by natural therapies. In a study published in 1990 in Proceedings of the National Academy of Science USA, one of most read scientific publications worldwide, it is noted that vitamin C is able to block replication of HIV in more than 99.9%. This means that for more than a decade the pharmaceutical industry, WHO and the establishment not only know there are natural alternatives against viruses, but also that they are more effective than any drug. The problem is that they are not patentable, and without the patent, the pharmaceutical industry has no profit. The amino acids lysine and proline are equally essential to blocking the spread of viruses as they propagate digesting surrounding tissue, or collagen. This means simply that the collagenase enzyme is neutralized so that the spread of the virus is prevented or minimized. Since I decided to continue to hold the torch until then charged by Linus Pauling, had been aware of the danger that run and take the battle to liberate the human being from the pharmaceutical industry, which promises health but sells the disease, was a deliberate decision. In fact, since I discovered the scurvy connection with cardiovascular disease, I knew that I was a threat to the pharmaceutical industry. This, however, no scientific arguments to oppose to my findings, restricted to try to disqualify me as a person, destiny of all who dare to stand up for what is direito quando homes, clinics, hospitals etc. adopt natural health circles, groups that have financial interest in the trade of the disease of the pharmaceutical industry will be deprived of money needed to finance the war. Therefore, health is also the most strategic and powerful factor in ensuring a peaceful life. The United States and the United Kingdom, the two countries that declared war on Iraq, not by chance are the two largest exporters of pharmaceuticals. The money on the sale of 2 out of 3 medicines pills worldwide returns for them. But the scientific knowledge that exists today is enough to eliminate 3/4 of diseases in industrialized countries. A vision of the future. In developing countries, more than 2 billion people suffered from micronutrient deficiencies, making them susceptible to infectious diseases and other health problems. Therefore, knowledge about the benefits of micronutrients is a crucial factor to improve the health and well-being of all. Imagine the amount of money that will be left to be applied in education and other social measures when no longer drained by the pharmaceutical industry, will be multi-trillion dollars available as soon as the trade disease is banned from the planet. Obviously, diseases still exist in 2020, but heart attacks, strokes, cancer, osteoporosis and many others will no longer be epidemics. I am convinced of the contribution that our foundation can give to have health for all by the year 2020. Currently, our main means of communication is the foundation's website. And while the World Health Organization (WHO) fails in its mission to provide information on natural health facilities to all people, we assume. So we made this page one of the main sources of information for patients, politicians and health professionals. For this we are striving to ensure that such information is available in several languages, however, all to send us information about pilot projects already implemented or not they are doing, in order to impart information and natural therapies in your community, city or country. Today one can patent and say anything in pharmaceutical industries enjoy and include new uses, dosage forms and combinations of old drugs reaching the high change, as has been said. Even the color of peel is a pharmaceutical industry. It has no interest in developing drugs to treat tropical diseases, such as malaria, sleeping sickness and schistosomiasis, common diseases in developing countries and the third world, because in these countries the population is very poor and could not afford their medications. On the other hand, it invests, with plenty on drugs to lower cholesterol, treat emotional disorders or osteoporosis. Urgently take action against these giants of the pharmaceutical industry who insist on distorting research, to increase their profits at any cost, to maintain through the patent monopoly of production and marketing of their drugs and to increase their prices to levels stratospheric. Among many, the pharmaceutical industry needs is to develop drugs to customers who can afford the prices established by them. The laboratories were some time ago turned to research to develop drugs to treat diseases. Today announce these diseases that fit in producing medicines. This may seem paradoxical and even perverse, but its far has reached this. Intriacum already gave the work to read a medicine bottle. Notice that the vast majority particular drug is suitable for various kinds of diseases. This is also a way for large laboratories burler on patent law and at the same time increase your profits, because such a remedy is for many ills, all this with the complacent gaze of the authorities and bodies. Quando a great laboratory announces the creation of a new drug with great potential for consumption, then its shares on the stock market skyrocketing, because the presumed profits in this new drug are very large and is guaranteed profit not only for laboratories and for investors/actionistas. A pharmaceutical industry handles results of scientific research, does not do all the necessary procedures to put it in the safe market for the population. The need to make profits, as soon as possible, it is what matters. Light team is invincible.